are you shitting? Like, it's so stupid and inconsistent. And it's just like, Jennifer, you had ideas someone could work with in here, but you didn't commit to any of it, which makes all of it bad.
Jennifer.
Quack.
Welcome to the Little Duck Book Club with duck number 1.
Ren and duck number 2.
Anna. And today we're talking about... So whenever we look for ideas to talk about and like books to talk about, we try to keep it balanced, you know, quality.
And fair and balanced treatment.
And then some trashy books. And one trashy book that I had on my radar for quite a long time was From Blood and Ash by Jennifer Armentrout. And I think you heard of it as well, but you never really thought about reading it, right?
Yeah, no, I know I've seen it around. I'm sure I've seen like YouTube thumbnails of people being like, oh, there's like 1 star or whatever. And I was like, okay, I'm not gonna read that. The description of it sounds like something I would not enjoy, and I have stayed clear until now.
And that's the difference between us, you know. I see the 1 star review as a challenge.
You're like, well, maybe I'll find something to love.
I do. I mean, think about Crescent City. I think that's a one star review for a lot of people, but I still enjoyed it.
That's true.
So,
but I feel like, I don't know. I feel like if I read it, I probably would give it at least 2 stars. I feel like it probably isn't quite 1 star. Because, like, there are some really, really garbage books out there that... And since the Goodreads rating only goes down to 1 star, and you can't give lower than that, you gotta keep perspective. You gotta be fair.
I even gave it 3 stars.
Damn. Because you found a lot to love.
Yeah, I did enjoy it a lot more than the second one. I gave the second one 2 stars. So we'll have to see whether the third one in January
keeps going downward.
It also gets 1 star. But we're not here to talk about Sarah J. Maas, at least not now. But From Blood, where do we want to start? I feel like...
I guess, like, a short summary, although, like, obviously, as always, this discussion isn't gonna give you much if you haven't read the book. Because we're not doing, like, a thorough examination and a thorough plot breakdown. We're just shooting the shit. But, like, yeah, so if you want to think about reading Blood and Ash, it's like, it is a fantasy romance, more heavy on the romance than the fantasy, I would say. It is about a woman, young woman, Poppy, who is, who lives... who is the chosen one in the religion of the country she's living in, and that restricts her life quite a bit. And we basically meet her when she's in preparation of like a super special event called the Ascension, where she's gonna do something. The book doesn't tell you, but something will be happening. And then in the roll up to that, she meets a hot man, and really the rest is history.
The rest is history. One thing I have to get this out in the beginning, because otherwise I will make a weird face every single time you say Ascension. So I read I apologize, my phone is not on. Okay.
Yeah, you were reasonable and got it from the library.
I read the book. I got it from the library, and my native tongue is not English, so I read it in a different language. I read it in German. So for me, all of the vocabulary was wrong, or not wrong, but different to what you read
to the original.
So whenever we were talking about it, I in my head had to go, wait, is this the thing that they're talking about? I think it's the thing they're talking about. Okay, and with the Ascension, because I'm such a nerd, Mass Effect, there's a giant spaceship that's called the Ascension. So whenever you were, oh yeah, Poppy has to do the Ascension thing, I was like, she's gonna ride that spaceship right to...
She's gonna transform into a spaceship.
She's gonna go like this. so every single time you say it, it's like,
What's it called in German? I'm curious.
Now I should have my book. I think it was like the Aufstieg.
I mean, honestly,
should I get my book?
I do prefer Ascension just because it sounds so not epic in German. Like, it sounds like such a regular... It's like, yeah, I'm gonna climb that hill, whatever. Like,
it's the same with... What was the other one? In English, you said it's the Craven.
Yeah.
In German, it's die Hungernden.
Okay.
So that
I mean,
like,
how would you translate that though?
The Craven.
I mean, the hungry guys is just like not as threatening. It's not as punchy and like.
Yeah, if you were to directly translate the Hungernden to English, it'd be like it'd be the hungry ones.
The hungry ones. It's
the Hunger Games.
The hungering. Yeah, it's
the Hungerers.
The Hungerers.
So
at least it's not the Hungarians, so it's like, that's fine.
So when you said, this thing about the Cravens, I was like, is this like a third faction that I just haven't met yet? Because I'm not.
You were like, wait, I'm 20 pages from the end. What is happening?
There's so much about this book that we could talk about. So let's start with our main character, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
With Poppy, because I mean, she's the first character that we kind of meet.
She is the narrator. Yeah,
we do spend a ridiculous amount of in her head. It's like she's not. I was thinking of how to word this when we're talking, and it feels like Poppy doesn't do a lot of thinking. She does a lot of like pondering, because it goes nowhere. She's not coming to conclusions.
Yeah, She is just sitting there, marinating in the soup. That's her thoughts.
It's like sloshing.
And like, sometimes you see there's a little arc of lightning striking from one soup ingredient to the next. And you're like, oh, is she gonna do anything? But then it's mostly just other people around her doing things. And,
the potato and the carrot, they're kind of floating apart in the soup.
Yeah, it's like, she's just got stew up there. There's not a lot happening, gotta be honest. The grey matter has liquefied.
So I think you're already getting from us, we don't really like Poppy as a character. It always starts with her name.
Her name is so dumb. Like,
I don't even know how to pronounce it.
A lot of names. I feel like Jennifer was like, it's fantasy. The names can't be normal. I've got to change one letter or several letters to make the name different, but still very alike a normal name. So Poppy is short for Penelope instead of Penelope, which would be a normal name.
Penelope sounds a lot more coherent than what I read in my head, because she's written like pen and then A-L-L-P-H-E, right?
Yeah.
So in my head it was like Penalpha.
That's so funny.
Because I also had the German,
mean, honestly,
the German reading, so it was like Penalpha. There's makes it sense.
Penelope is so bad. I wish she'd also, like, the love interest is named Hawk, which is kind of disappointing. I wish she had also done something funky with his name. I feel like you could have replaced one of those letters, maybe the K into a C, so he's Hawk, but in the weirdest way possible.
Maybe sprinkle like a letter in there that's not pronounced. No, just for us.
He's Hawk, but with an O instead of an A, so it's
Hulk.
Hulk.
But I feel like he as a character is a disrespect to the other Hawk that I know in fiction, which is not nice. The
Dragon Age, right?
Yeah, the name should be preserved for quality content, not whatever he is.
Me looking at images of like the bird online, I'm like, I'm sorry this happened to you, gently like patting the screen. You deserve better.
You deserve a lot better.
But let's talk about Poppy.
Yeah.
I love that, like, immediately we're bullying her, and like I remember, like, I've read like, I don't know, 15% of the book, and I wrote to you like, God, I hope, like, is it bad that I'm cheering for Poppy to die? I'm like, I am team anti-Poppy immediately.
I remember it was when I was the one time I was faster than you. I wasn't even faster, I just started earlier, but like the one time I was ahead of you
were
in the book,
me,
and I just thought, it's not gonna get better. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah. You were lighting like some candles for me. You were like, it's not gonna go up. That's Nope.
So,
but yeah, no, it's
Poppy is what's supposed to be her age? I forgot. Throughout the book, a lot of times I thought, how old is this woman? I think she's 19, right?
I'm not entirely sure because I feel like if the book had been better, I'd been paying more attention. Mm-hmm. I kept getting confused whether she is 19 at present or if the ascension happens on her, like when she's 19.
At her 19th birthday.
Yeah. So I was like, is she already 19 or is she not? She's around 19, which like a few months, give or take, it's not gonna change. Like, It doesn't really matter. 18, 19, it's like, okay, she's barely old enough so you can write all the sex scenes you want without anybody being like, hey, what are you doing?
The wiki says she's 19.
Yeah. And, like, obviously, by the standards of her society, she is an adult already, even though she herself doesn't get a lot of privileges from that, because she is the chosen one.
Yeah, she doesn't have any agency.
Which is called the Maiden. And
it's better than the German one again.
Die Jungfrau?
In German, it's die Jungfräuliche. So basically, she's the virgin.
Yeah, but what couldn't they? Why even? Okay, I'm not even gonna.
They could have called her the maid, die Maid, or something. Maid is a word that exists in German.
Yeah, it's like you could have. Yeah, you could have done something else, but okay.
Die Jungfräuliche.
Like, because in English, like, maiden has the connotation of innocence, but it is not a necessity. It also is just young woman.
Yeah.
But in German, that's like, yeah, Jungfrau is just, yeah.
It's the virgin.
No sex for you, girl. Yeah.
I was wondering. See,
it's
I wanted
also a star sign, but.
I wanted to ask you and I forgot. I wondered what it would be like in English.
It's the maiden.
Opened the book and I was like,
yeah. So her life is because she's so special. Her life is very regimented. She doesn't get to have friends. She just has one lady in waiting.
We'll get to her later.
Whatever, and has like personal guards that she's allowed to talk to, but nobody else except
the Lord. No, what was it?
Yeah, the Duke. Who owns the castle she's living in at the moment, and his wife, the Duchess, is also allowed to talk to her. And she also has to keep her face hidden because, I mean, that part I don't mind. It's like, cool, yeah, weird religious rituals, whatever. I'm here for it. That's
she's
fine.
all dressed in white. You know, she has to like button up everything. People don't really get to see anything. She's even wearing gloves, right? Gloves. She's like closed shoes, so people don't see any skin apart from the lower part of her face. Was it that?
Yeah, I think so. Which I don't really understand. If you're gonna wear a veil, why not wear a veil that covers your whole face?
I don't get it either. And in the beginning, I thought that it was like...
I also assumed it would cover
the
her whole
thing,
face.
But then she mentioned... At some point.
That's what veils usually do.
But then she mentioned at some point that they could only see the lower part of her face, and I was like, that makes sense.
Why though?
And then I looked at the fan art because I'm like that, and people would draw veils where you could like see her whole face. I was like, that's not a veil anymore.
It's like, well, the veil's not doing its job at this point, right?
Yeah.
If you can, but that's also.
But yeah, she's like completely
she's covered. She's not allowed to talk to people. She has to hide herself. She's very sheltered. She doesn't.
Yeah.
There's only a few books she's approved to read. Like
she has to. Yeah, right. She has to go to lessons with a priestess and like be taught.
Repeatedly read one book out loud, which is. I mean, a very strange activity to do.
I feel like but I didn't feel like she had to read it that many times. What does she say? She said she's read it 5 times or something.
Considering she's that 19. You can recite it from memory because she's had to read it so many times.
I thought at some point she said she read it 5 times or something, which is enough to recite something, I feel like, at some point.
Yeah, or at least to feel like you could, even if technically you can.
But yeah, still, there's a very restricted amount. If you have
to read 1,000-page book or whatever, like, over and over, I'd also be bored as shit, and it's also like, why do that?
The whole thing with the priestess, or like Poppy's education in general, was confusing to me anyways, because like she goes to the priestess to learn about the temples of the religion, to read the book, or to knit. It's like very
and
maiden behavior.
It's like, wait, what?
So it didn't really tie together for me.
The weird part is also that it's like, oh yeah, she learns about the gods and the religion or whatever, but she doesn't know shit. Like,
oh my god, she's so dumb.
She doesn't, and it's also frustrating as the reader, because Jennifer mentions, like, oh yeah, there are temples and the priestesses are so important, and like, okay, interesting. Are we going to learn any information? It's like, no, you can't go, like, the temples are like very secretive, you can't go in there, and also no information for you. Fuck you for asking.
Yeah. There's this thing with Poppy where in D&D terms she would have neither wisdom nor intelligence. She'd be dumb. She'd be book dumb and street dumb. No intelligence whatsoever.
It really it's like, again, her brain is soup, but several characters keep mentioning how smart she is, and you read this and you're just like, but she could walk into a wall just because she forgot, like, that it was there. Like, it's not, she's not smart.
I felt like with Poppy as a character, she switches up a lot. Sometimes she's like super into a scene and she kind of, like, you feel that she knows what would be right and wrong, and sometimes you just wanting to scream at her because she has no idea. So it's like, it's very, she's more inconsistent than who was the main, Isla from Lightlark. Because when we texted about the book, we had like a very short comparison between Lightlark and From Blood and Ash, and I felt like at least Isla was inconsistent in the way where what people would tell about Isla, what she'd be like, she wasn't doing.
But she
was consistently not doing. She was
consistently girl bossing, and she was consistently confident.
Yeah.
What, like, the problem is that, like, Poppy is just whatever a scene demands of her to take its dramatic course. She's not consistent, and she's basically a kind of Frankenstein amalgamation of popular YA tropes.
Yeah, definitely.
She is the cool, powerful girl boss who can fight better than, like, a lot of soldiers, even though she is so tiny and sheltered and innocent. And she's also, she loves books and reading, and she's so smart. But also, none of these things apply in any given scene.
But she can also fight.
And also, it's also mentioned that, like, oh, she's so violent. Like, Hawk several times comments how, oh, you're so violent, Poppy. And it's like, is she, though?
Yeah, is she, though?
Like, sometimes she has ideation that you could construe as violent, but it's just like, oh, I wish I could throw this object that I'm holding in my hand currently at their face, which is a childish temper tantrum and not genuine violence. Like, I feel like the problem really is that, like, Poppy has, at least the book is telling us, grown up with some pretty severe abuse heaped upon her. It would not be surprising if she then, as a result, became a violent person, but also aware that she couldn't act that out while she's still in a position below the people who are abusing her. But that's not how she comes across. She is not, like, she is frustrated with the fact that she can't experience life like everybody else. She can't go to parties. She can't have sex. She can't go gambling and read smutty books. Boo-hoo. But it's never, like, a genuine like, there's just one scene where she has, like, where she monologues at somebody about it. But even that seems more childish. It is not, it doesn't feel like she's genuinely desperate and, like, hates her life. She's just like, oh, all this stuff is inconvenient. I wish I could be like other girls, but unfortunately, I am too special and not like other girls, so that's not possible for me.
It doesn't feel as honest. The monologue happens, I think, after her second time making... Was it her third, if we count the first one? After canoodling with Hawk. And then they get caught and he goes away and she has a discussion with Victor. I think that's when she gives him the monologue.
Yeah.
But it doesn't come like across as what you said, an honest outburst, because Poppy does sneak away. It's not like she has this yearning for all of these things and like this anger building up inside of her because she can't have it, because she does have it anyways on the side. Yeah, like as much as she's portrayed as this, ooh, goody two shoes, I'm doing everything you want from me, that doesn't work if on the next page she does exactly not what they want.
Yeah, it's the problem with Poppy is that Jennifer wants a lot, but she cannot commit to anything. And I think one of the most obvious examples of that is that Poppy is, in theory, disfigured from the attack that happened on her family when she was a child. However, the scars are, 1, in places no one really sees, and 2, the ones in her face are ridiculously small. They are not genuinely disfiguring. And also, like, the book continually insists upon the fact that Poppy is so beautiful. If you wanted a disfigured protagonist who is insecure and suffers from the fact that they've been traumatized their entire life, that they know that nobody can see their face, and if they did, they would probably be disgusted with it because it's not what you'd expect from the maiden. You could have something that would actually be interesting. It would probably be kind of groundbreaking in popular YA to have a protagonist who is genuinely just not conventionally attractive. But no. Oh, she's so beautiful, and she has like a little scar through her one eyebrow and one that's like beside her eye over her cheek, and that's like, you just want her to look cool but also feel sad about it, and it just doesn't work.
She reminded me of, you don't have TikTok. There's a girl on TikTok that's like coined Scar Girl, because she was like paint a scar onto her face and the scar would like change position. It was very obvious that it wasn't a true scar. That's what Poppy reminded me of. But yeah, it would have been, when the moment she describes the scars, it would have been very easy to just describe them as a bit bigger, bit more gruesome, and not just like two little scratches on her face. The thing
is also that like scar tissue does not behave like healthy tissue. And if you had genuine, like, deep scarring on your face, you would be limited in your facial movements. It would distort them. And also, you would probably be in pain regularly, because that's just how it works. There's so much blood flow and nerve endings in your face. It would just be like that. It's unfortunate. And I think it put me off so much, because shortly before this, I read a book series in the Mortal Engines where you have a protagonist who is genuinely disfigured. Like,
that's what I thought about.
Her one eye doesn't work anymore. She has a scar like over her entire face. It ruins her face. Everyone's like, "Ooh, that's ugly. That's like a fucked up face." And it's like, it's so easy as a characterization tool too. It's so much free characterization that you could get from it if you could just commit to the fact that she's not model beautiful.
Yeah.
But Jennifer can't, because then if Poppy's not gorgeous, then who would really want to fuck her?
There's also only a couple of instances where she's like insecure about the scars that are not on her face, because it's said that the one on her face is just 2 scars, and then supposedly she has scars all over her body, but she's mostly like, usually the scenes where she's like, oh no, my scars, are the ones with her face. You know, she takes the veil off, Hawk looks at her and she's like, he's gonna tell me I'm ugly as fuck. Like, girl,
and he's like, oh, she's so beautiful.
You're beautiful. But the
all
scenes,
of her is so beautiful.
Scenes where I would actually expect her to like be scared, you know, or insecure, would be the scene where she's intimate with Hawk, and there it doesn't seem to play a role at all. Like, he looks at her once, he's like, you have great tits, and then they fuck. And that's it. Like, that's the moment. If the thing on her face is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the scars and the insecurities she has, it feels weird to, like...
Yeah, it's so cheap. It's like such a cosmetic thing slapped onto her character, and it doesn't work. It's like, you could have also used this to reinforce the fact that she heals incredibly quickly, that, like, she ought to be scarred, but she's not, you know? And then it would be also kind of suspicious and be like, I wonder why that's like that.
Yeah. You know?
A mystery.
but yeah, the Poppy is like a conundrum in a lot of areas, sort of. At least to me, it feels like. Yeah, it's especially the I feel left out, but she she sneaks out on the daily, out of her room. All these people around her are in compliance with endangering the most important person in this kingdom.
Yeah, it's like, I do have a theory as to why Poppy is like this. Because I feel like Jennifer came up with the concept of, like, the maiden who is both sheltered and abused. So she is insecure, she is lonely, she is easy to manipulate in some ways because she is so lonely, which is exactly what Hawke does. But if you play this straight, if you take a victim of abuse who genuinely doesn't really have anyone to turn to, who's, like, alone and extremely vulnerable, and then pull the story and let Hawke do what he did, he looks really, really, really bad. Yeah. But if you also then decide, oh no, it's cool, she can fight, she's sassy, she actually, has some world experience, even if it's not with sex, she's not that sheltered, she has, like, agency, she's a cool girl boss too. Then it's not quite as creepy anymore, then it's not, then Hawke doesn't look quite as horrible anymore.
Yeah, no, that's quite a smart observation. It's I love when people do that. So there's like this thing that a lot of times when you just switch perspective in love stories, where it becomes a horror story. My favorite one is Passengers. If you were to switch Passengers, it would turn into the worst horror movie of all times, or the best possibly.
Because, like, really imagine that you have a young girl who's barely of age, who's being abused by the man who has control over her, and experiences physical and sexualized abuse from him and another man who has power over her. No one around her ever stops them. She can't really talk about her deepest secrets with anyone because all of them have to report to the man who's abusing her. She can't contact anyone outside because all her letters are read. She is functionally alone. And then a man who is several hundred years old,
which you don't know in the beginning,
where he, 1, starts murdering people who were very close to her in order to take that place. 2, sets up a situation where he's alone in a room with her and starts making out with her without any kind of indication from her that she wants it. He then offers to stop, but also she's alone, she's lonely, and she's horny. So, and he takes it, and he knows this because he's been watching her for a while.
Oh my
God.
God.
So he knows all of this.
Oh no.
He engineered the situation, and then he does give her an out to leave, to look kind of like a gentleman, and he knows she leaves, and then later pretends he was like, oh, I came back for you, but you were gone, sad smiley face. And then he gets another person who's close to her killed in order to take one of the only positions where he also has control over her as her guard, who can tell her where she's allowed to go, who can confine her to her room if he so chooses to, and then starts manipulating her, ingratiating himself into her life starts stopping some of the abuse she experiences, because he doesn't have to be afraid of consequences from the Duke, because he can just leave. Yeah. He plays on all her insecurities and wishful fantasies to get her to fall in love with him. And then, even though he didn't organize it, an attack happens. And the only other person who really was like a rock for her dies. And immediately he kidnaps her in form of telling her, oh, I'm gonna take you somewhere safe. But then actually takes her to a place where, again, he has complete control over her, murders everyone else who was there to protect her and wasn't on his own payroll, and then manipulates her into having sex with him and tells her, oh, you can't be mad about this later because you said yes this time. You can't be mad about it later. And then all of this is revealed, and it is revealed that he's been the entirety of the time a man who she would have never slept with if she had known of his identity. And then he imprisons her, and then gives her an aphrodisiac later, and is like, oh, I can't sleep with you, but keeps making out with her, and then they have sex again.
I'm gagged.
And then, at the end, he's like, no, you can't go to the capital. I am taking you to my hometown where I'm the prince, and we're gonna get married.
Marry you.
This is fucking insane. Like, if Poppy isn't a sassy girl who's like, oh no, I have control of the situation, and I'm cool, and I can fight, this looks so bad. This is so bad.
Oh my god.
Bad.
Oh, I mean, I didn't like the relationship anyways, but now it's like giving me
but like looking at it like that, it is crazy.
The thing is, in some situations, she is conveniently that character, so he can just snatch her up. But to kind of balance it out, she has to be the other version. Oh my god, we can end this episode right here. It's just
that was when I thought about it and and that thought occurred to me. I was like, oh my god, this is like, I want to have my thoughts organized for this, but it's like it is so, and of course, like, if you don't want readers to think about that much, you make her like strong and be the more sexually aggressive one. But again, it's like, sure, she did say yes.
But under which circumstance?
It was certainly not informed consent. Like, imagine you meet a guy and, you're confident, you have cool banter, and you sleep with him. And then later, he tells you, oh yeah, I'm the guy who murdered your best friend. Do you think having this information would have influenced how you would have interacted with him, and whether you wanted his, like...
Oh my god.
And also, I mean, he's not even, like, human, so it's also, like... Oh yeah, also, I'm, like, a different guy. It's just, like, sure, she did say yes, but, like, I don't think this is good.
He's like, I have one good news. And then, like, 5 bad ones. You want to hear first. And she's like, the good one? Like... I had a good fuck with you. All right, 5 bad ones. I'm the villain. I'm not human. I can't.
It's like...
Oh my god.
It's so...
So okay, so I feel like we've dabbled enough into Poppy that we have to kind of talk about the other stuff before we can continue looking at hers. So since we've talked about him now for quite a while, let's jump to our love interest / horror movie villain.
Yeah, to our, like... psycho thriller protagonist.
I can't think about this book differently now.
Cass / Castile, which I can't call him Cass because I've been on Tumblr too long to associate this name with anything but supernatural.
Like she doesn't qualify as a child bride because she's too old, but if we take his age into consideration, it's like he just got himself one.
It's like, sure, he's like, oh no, along the way of manipulating you, I actually fell in love with you, I like you. And it's like, sure, but that doesn't help. Like, and even if it's true from her perspective, I would not believe it. Like, how could you ever believe anything this man says ever again? Like, ever. And the thing is... But also, like, if you're 200 years old, even if you've been in prison for a good part of it, and that, like, stunts your development because it does suck. Like, it's not great. But... what do you get out of a relationship with a sheltered 18, 19-year-old? There's no way he hasn't met like 100 women who are just like her, but not this sheltered, right?
I had to, yeah, I had a bit of a moment because I was about to say, oh, I think this pretending to be in love with you thing was very well done in Baldur's Gate with Astarion. And then you continue, a 200-year-old guy, and I'm like, Astarion is 200 years, who spent the majority in prison. I was like, damn, this boy was kept underneath the city because he couldn't go out in the sun. He had to eat rats.
What?
And you're like, and he gets out. What did he get from getting into a relationship with a sheltered person? I'm like, well, that's where it ends, depending on which character you play.
But really though,
yeah.
Like, I mean,
but
I don't get relationships at all. But I feel like
true.
I am 26. If I look at 19-year-olds, I'm like, you're so young. What am I supposed to do with you? Like, what? I'm not like.
Yeah.
I can't.
The thing is, have we ever talked about like the fantasy age differences on these episodes? We definitely talked about it in person.
Yeah,
I feel like these fantasy age differences make sort of sense, kind of, not much, but a little bit. If the person who is like 300, 200, whatever years old is in their race, species, whatever, about the same age as the human equivalent, sort of. But if I've understood it correctly, the Atlanteans are just
people who get very old.
Immortal? He doesn't say that they age slowly or anything. Or that they...
Yeah,
he just says, I'm older than I look. It's like, fine, keep your secrets. So,
yeah, it
feels weird.
I feel like fantasy age gaps are like...
difficult.
I mean, as a term of description, it's like, oh no, the age gap is so huge. He's 200. And it's like, sure. But this is just a technical number. No 200-year or several hundred-year-old vampire in any romance fiction has ever behaved like somebody who's actually that age. They behave like the number is only there for like, oh, he's cool and experienced, and like give it like some like it's supposed to be sexy if you're like into older guys, but also they still look young because you're not really that, and because you don't want to commit to the daddy kink because a lot of people will not like it. So it's like, it's not really a meaningful number. I don't find like it's not really like, I feel like if Poppy was like a confident like person who just like wasn't like, even if she's 19, if she's just like she has her work that she does every day, she lives as an adult, I don't think that like, even if she was like 25 but still so sheltered, that'd be the part that's off-putting.
That's the problem.
The whole manipulative aspect is just like, yikes.
There's also this thing, like, I'm not kink shaming anyone here, and I know that there's this thing about virgins that some people seem to find very enticing.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Hawk is giving me like sleazy car salesman vibes whenever he's like rizzing her up. It didn't read as like, ooh, they have like fun, sexy banter. It read like, oh geez. Get this man away from her.
It's like, it's worse after you've finished the book and you know, like, you know for sure he's been like engineering the situation on purpose. But even while it happens, the banter's not good, which I feel like is probably not intentional.
Yeah.
But he spends so much time being like, oh, I'm so sexy and I'm so experienced. And the worst of all being like calling her nicknames that she does not want.
The
and
princess
then insisting that she likes it anyway. It's like, consent king right here. Can't even listen when somebody tells him no in a benign manner. Cool.
Honestly, the any interaction that Hawk has with Poppy reeks of this man should go to a sexual harassment seminar at work. Like, especially the first, what you just said, reading the book and then looking at the scenes back. The very first scene. So what happens? We talked about Poppy being like, oh, I miss out on everything. But she sneaks out. And she sneaks out to a brothel. And she's like, oh my God. Like, I'm kind of enticed by this. But I'm also this is uncomfortable for me. She looks at the people and she goes, I kind of want to experience that. But also, no. Like, this is not what I want. And then she has to flee upstairs. Because her guardian... personal guard, dad,
father figure comes in, and she's like, "Oh no, he can't catch me because he'll be mad at me.
He'll recognize her." So she runs up the stairs and she meets like an employee at
a woman who works there who's like, "Hey, if you need a safe place to hide, you can go into this room."
So she goes into this room, and who is in this room? It's our master manipulator. And she's wearing a coat, right? She's wearing a coat or like a fancy jacket or something that one of the maids,
one of her maids,
wears at the castle. And supposedly, here we don't even know if this is true, honestly.
I don't think it's true.
Hawk apparently confuses her with a girl that the code is from, but now looking back at it, it's like he probably just said that.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't think he fucked a maid. Like, I don't think so. I think he
I mean, he had to get his reputation from somewhere, right? Because there's this huge thing about his reputation and people talking about him. But
yeah, but
he acts,
I have doubts.
He acts, I do too.
Yeah.
He acts like he doesn't recognize, or he recognizes this person, and he immediately starts like kissing her, grabbing her, making out with her, and she's like, as you said, she's young, she's sheltered, she has never experienced this, and she's kind of horny because she just walked through a brothel, because you know, and he kind of, I don't even know whether he throws her onto the bed or like pushes her or something, but suddenly she's lying down, he's on top of her, and they have a full-blown conversation with him just lying on top of her, like blocking her off, and whenever she's like
king.
He's like playing for 10 minutes. His abs are made of steel. No, but he's looking at her and like feeling her up and making out and kissing her neck, and she's constantly saying, please let me go, I don't like this. You know, it kind of feels nice, but this is not somewhere I'd like to be. And he just doesn't, like, the first time they meet and he basically sexually assaults her and then is like, oh baby girl, I'd like to continue this later. Like, what the fuck?
It is so bad.
It is, and then that kind of sets the tone for the rest of their relationship.
And like, on the topic of that, like, I feel like the book tries to be very progressive in regards to sex and also casual sex. Mm-hmm. It is mentioned that like all the other lords and ladies in waiting that are also gonna have an ascension that live at the castle, they can fuck whoever they want. They can fuck around and find out as much as they want to. Mm-hmm. They're free to. There doesn't seem to be a huge stigma around it for people generally. Mm-hmm. However, it is very, very interesting that Poppy doesn't have any kind of romantic or sexual involvement with anyone. True. Except Hawk.
True.
He has her first kiss. He is the first to really make out with her. He is her first in basically every sex act. She has nothing and knows nothing about it except what she experiences with him and read in one pornographic journal that may or may not be based on the true life of a woman who wrote it. Yeah. It is... And also, again, the book ends with them going to get married. I feel like the book tries to, you know, be casual about sex, but really when it does matter, when it's our protagonist who it's about, mm-hmm. then actually No, it's good if you marry the first one you have any kind of positive sex with at all. Yeah, you shouldn't ever, like, have other people.
Yeah.
Like, I know we've already made the comparison, but, like, at least Farah in ACOTAR has had casual sex before she meets either of her old man love interests.
Yeah.
Who also have a lot of experience. So it comes across as a lot more genuine, where the sex and the first time isn't treated as something sacred and valuable in itself. But here it really is.
Yeah.
Like, the book tries, but the message doesn't come across because it's not applied to the main character.
Because it also feels so, like, opposite to what she tries to do with Poppy. Like, you cannot try to be super casual about sex and intimacy while also writing a story about somebody who holds that to such a high regard and, like, mystifies it so much because they don't get into contact with it. So that feels weird, to say the least. Could be done. I think could be done by a well-skilled writer, but that's I feel like who Armentrout is.
While we're on that topic, I think there's also something to be said about Poppy and the way she has, like, sex with Hawk, because, and in the regards to virginity and valuing that and stuff, because it is obviously written in a way to relate to young women who grew up in a sort of puritanical environment, USA, where virginity is highly priced, and you were told that you are lacking the moment you lose it. That it is a mistake to have sex before authority allows you to in the real world when you get married, and in there, not ever after she has her ascension or whatever. But it does kind of fall flat. Like, she has been told since she's been 3 years old that she is chosen, and that her ascension is so important that the future of the entire kingdom, and implicated in that is the survival of the people in it, depend on the fact that she follows the rules set out for her, which includes being a virgin. The fact that she throws this away to a guy she's known for a few weeks at most. I'm not even... The timeline is very strange.
It is...
I'm not sure about the timeline, but she has known for very little time, and just is like, oh yeah, I want to be found unworthy, you know, it's just too much pressure, I don't want this anymore, and I'm so horny, I need to have sex right now, and I'm so in love. And, like, I feel like the problem here again is her writing, where, like, if you play this straight and you're like, okay, she's been abused because of this, she doesn't like being the maiden, if you make her decide to screw over everyone else because she's had to live her life for everyone else and she hates it, and she's like, you know what, I don't want this, fuck all of you, you've treated me like shit, I don't care, that would be fine. It would be a great character choice. I'd be very interested in a character who's, like, not a good person and owns it and is like, you know what, I know what results
means
from this, and I choose it anyway. But we were introduced in the first few chapters that Poppy cares so much about everyone and, like, loves saving the common people and everything. The fact that she even considers losing her virginity at all is insane. She's been told and indoctrinated her entire life that the kingdom's future rests on the fact that she follows the rules set out for her. And she's like, oh, I can break them whenever I want. You know, it's not a big deal. Are you shitting? Like, it's so stupid and inconsistent. And it's just like, Jennifer, you had ideas someone could work with in here, but you didn't commit to any of it, which makes all of it bad.
Jennifer. True, but that's also one of the things that when I said earlier, considering the importance of Poppy to this kingdom, to everything, I feel like everybody handling her is too lash is too not strict enough. Like, if you find this child at 3 years old, and you're like, this will save everything, everyone, we will survive, and we have to keep this child long enough, like 16 years from now on. No, no dirty unchristian thoughts here. She has to be cloistered. She needs to be prepared. She just needs to survive.
Yeah, she can't have personal relationships, whatever.
Why give her so many... Like, why give her so many opportunities to fuck up? Of course, like, changing... For example, why give people the opportunity to build genuine relationships with her, like a lady in waiting, like a personal guard? Of course, changing out the personal guard too many times could leave up, like, security risks because there's too many people interacting with her. But at the same time, keeping one guy with her all this time...
It is fucking crazy that any of the people she's allowed to be close to are ever on her side.
That as well.
The Duke is the one who chooses who gets to be close to her, and he's an overly controlling, sadistic piece of shit. Are you telling me he wouldn't handpick people who are loyal to him, who do not give a shit about Poppy's emotional state, and would just do whatever he tells them, which is build no personal relationship, keep her away from everyone else, and keep her behaving exactly as I want to. The fact that she can trust her handmaid, who's like her best friend,
it doesn't
that she
make
can
any
trust
sense.
her with anything, that she's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get up to hijinks with you, is deranged. That she has the chance to have anyone she can genuinely trust is, again, such a missed opportunity, because, like...
There was
It's right there. Like, she's already shit. Why don't you isolate her properly if that's the angle you want to play? But again, if she's that isolated, Hawk looks really, really, really bad.
The one time I thought, oh man, Tawny, who is her lady in waiting, I thought now she's gonna actually step up. She's gonna become an interesting character. Was when there was the attack of the Craven on the city. And immediately Poppy's like, she's grabbing her bow, she's getting her cloak, she wants to go out and fight the Craven. And Tony's like, the fuck you doing?
Yeah.
Stay here. And Poppy's like, no, I have to go. Tony's like, are you fucking stupid? You're gonna die out there. We're gonna stay here. She's like, what if the Craven get to us? She's like, we're in the safest space in these walls. If the Craven get to us, we have bigger problems than that. And she still lets her go. She lets the only chance for this kingdom to survive go willingly.
Walk out the door,
It's not even Poppy. Yeah, Poppy could have died being killed by the Cravens. Poppy could also fall off a fucking roof because she likes to do parkour and break her neck. It's just... Tawny is the... Like... No Tawny's matter how well her personal guard is, Tawny just fucks it all up in a second because she lets her go.
It is also fucking insane to me that, like, her room even has the hidden exit.
Oh my god.
Are you telling me somebody who's paranoid and hates her having any autonomy would not check this room carefully, especially when she insists on staying there and not move to the other wing where all the other important people live?
And the thing is, some of the servants know about this. It's not just Poppy and Victor and Tawny who know about it. Some of the servants do as well. So they could easily sneak up there and have a little romantic tryst, or even not. Somebody could think like, dang, I wanna rape the maiden and just go up that thing.
Yeah, I mean, she's like, oh no, the door locks from the inside, so it's fine. It's like, are you telling me none of these servants was like, yeah, there's a door she can leave through? You know who'd love to know about this? The Duke, who would probably reward me for telling him this. And I'm a servant, and I don't make a lot of money because I'm a fucking servant, and I would benefit greatly from this. And also, I want the maiden to be safe, and if she can't just walk away, that's bad for the kingdom, you know?
One thing, before I lose that train of thought that I also didn't really understand about the Duke, is, so the Duke is like the conniving bad person, and his best friend is like Lord Menzine, the other guy, and the Lord knows that Poppy should stay a virgin as well. But the one time he kind of assaults her and feels her up and is like nearly like nibbles at her neck, I'm like, how far would this dude go? Like, does he know he's not supposed to have relations with her?
The thing about the virginity isn't relevant, right? It's a thing they made up and told her. I think they're in the know
he probably knows,
that she's part Atlantean, and that's why they don't want her, to leave, because they want to drink her blood or whatever. Yeah. But so still, they know the virginity doesn't matter, but it's still like, dude, you can rape her at the Ascension if you're that desperate, whatever. Like, why are you're several hundred years old too? Why are you like this? You could just,
Yeah.
If you want to convince her that her virginity is important, maybe leave the sexual assault for later.
But okay, because maybe I'm still too dumb for this book.
Oh, I doubt this. I don't think anyone could be, honestly.
So the Ascension, right? That's this thing that Poppy has to do when she's 19. That's why she has to stay a virgin, all that. Are we ever being told what they originally planned with her in the first book?
I mean, the book doesn't tell you, but it strongly implies. Because the Ascension is when all the second-born children get turned into vampires, and you can only do that with the blood of an Atlantean. So I think the implication is that they're gonna drink her blood. And she's the future of the kingdom because they can use her blood to make more vampires, which they're invested in.
But do they know that she's Atlantean?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I feel like that's the implication why she's important. Because, like, the Craven, like, curse or whatever doesn't affect her, right? Everybody who gets, like, scratched or bitten by them turns, but she does
the Duke know as well?
I feel like they all know. Like, I feel like the people who have custody over her, like, the Queen, the Duke, like, it is mentioned that they're all original, like, vampire or whatever. That they're all super old. So they all know where, like, vampire come from. They all must be aware of, like, Hawk's brother, who's, like, a blood bag in the capital or whatever. And, like, that's why they want her to be the maiden. That's why they were like, okay, we need to keep her alive, and then we're gonna, drink her. I wonder, actually, whether Hawk's brother might be dead, and that's why they're so intent on keeping her. And why they wait until she's, like, an adult and, like, is not gonna die super fast. Because they need, more Atlantean blood if they want to make more vampires and keep the whole fiction of the gods granting people immortality, like, keep that up. But, I don't know, maybe they're just like, well, tasty. I don't know, it's,
But one thing...
It's not explained.
Yeah, the whole thing... So, let's dabble in the world building a little bit. We have... oh my god. We have the normal humans. And...
Yeah.
They live their life, and once they get children, they have to start counting, and they have to start remembering, even if one of the child dies, the amount of children they had. Because the second-born sons or daughters get handed over to this sort of royal caste, sort of. Like, they are like royalty, but also not really, but they are beautiful. They are...
Yeah, they get to ascend and become the ascended.
Ageless. They get, like, black eyes, and they're called the ascended. Is that the English one as well?
Yeah.
They become ascended, and it's a high honor of your child to become an ascended.
Yeah.
And then the third and the fourth child, and they never talk about fifth, but I guess it also applies to the fifth children.
I don't know. Like, that...
I don't know. The families get to keep their first child, but I don't know what happened with the other ones.
That's actually, like, a weird thing where I was like, the text wasn't super clear on it, because at the beginning, it calls them ladies and lords in waiting.
Yeah.
Which to me implied they're the second-born children of the aristocracy who get to ascend. But then later we meet people who were from rich merchant families, and then at that, like, party that gets, like, attacked, we also get to see a bunch of lowborn second-born children who also seem to get in on it, but logistically this is insane.
I feel like, yeah,
a society can totally support like 100, 200 like vampires who need to drink blood very regularly, and like, you know, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But do you know how many fucking peasant families there are? How many second-born children there would be? That would be so unsustainable. That would be impossible.
Yeah. Didn't they say something about her brother, even though he was not a second-born son, he still got to be turned into an ascendant because of her? Maybe it's the same with like the you said that word. Aristocracy?
Aristocracy. But like, in the aristocracy, it makes sense. Because like, the ascendant can't have kids, so like, your firstborn carries the name, and you know, their descendants are the valid other aristocrats. But again, if you have not, like, if you just have everyone's second child, that's too many fucking kids.
I mean, that's why we take the third and the fourth child, and they supposedly get sacrificed to the temple. Like, they have to start working at the temple and like sacrifice their life to God and like work and, I don't know, pray the whole day. And I mean, as you've probably noticed, this whole thing is a bit weird and not very concise. But the reason is because it's fake, actually. The Ascended aren't just pretty people. They are vampires. And the children working at the temples are actually being snacked upon by these Ascended people. And here's the next thing that doesn't really make any sense unless the Ascension morally changes people. Considering how many children potentially get turned into vampires, shouldn't there be at least one of them that still has morals? That's still like, the fuck, you just like, am I gonna snack on my neighbor's kid in a couple of weeks? But maybe the Ascension changes them.
The especially weird thing is that the story, it doesn't really give a lot of details, but it implies extremely heavily that at least during the Ascension, people are like drinking the blood of those 3-year-olds and killing them, which is insane.
The 3-year-olds? Or do you mean the thirdborns?
Yeah, the thirdborn children who are given to the temples at like 3 years old.
I missed that they were given at 3 years old.
They are super young and super tiny.
Why not wait until they get more blood?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, if you give them to the temples and have the temples indoctrinate them into, like, you know, you have to sacrifice your blood to the gods to, like, keep their favor. And, like, if you didn't have the vampires drinking directly from the people, but you take the blood offering to them, so it's, like, plausible deniability, you know, that the kids don't really know, but, you know, some people... But the fact that there are legitimate children getting murdered, it just... That's deranged, because, like, if you want to be edgy, that's cool, but most people have an extremely visceral negative reaction to dead children, and are extremely put off by violence against children. The idea that not anyone who finds out about this would stop this at any possible cost is just it's just unrealistic. It's not just like stupid, it's just so unrealistic that it's nonsensical.
I mean, just thinking about the priests, unless the priests or priestesses are also ascended, they should be revolted at what they're being asked to do.
Yeah, like, you can have some insane sociopaths there who don't care about kids or whatever, but most people would be viscerally so put off by that. Like, you don't even have to love children for that. It's just...
Yeah, it's just
humans
cruel.
Are so social, and they love babies and children because they're like, this is such a helpless, poor little thing. Like, we love babies so much that it just transfers onto every animal baby you also see, and you're like, oh no, this poor little baby, I love it. Like, this doesn't make sense. This wouldn't work.
Yeah. I mean, again, unless the ascension morally changes people,
yeah,
then maybe it doesn't. But there seems to be some sort of like spectrum in terms of changing them, because the Duchess behaves a lot more empathetic and nice towards Poppy. We do notice that she's still a bit ruthless in some parts, but
also she's like, but that's not like her behavior. And even like Lord Mazine and like the Duke aren't really out of the scope of normal human behavior either. There are sadistic men in power who love abusing people and who get sexual gratification from it. There are women in power who are like, yeah, God, mind fuck everyone else. Like, yeah, it's sad that they're hurting you, but like, that's not a me problem right now.
Yeah.
So like, this is not unusual. Like, people in power can be monstrous. So it's not like none of them behave like there's something so deeply wrong with them that it has to be supernatural in origin. It just seems that they're super old, so they're like, yeah, whatever happens to these other people, you know? They don't have the same value as me, so who gives a shit?
Yeah, that's true.
So, like, it's not, they don't seem monstrous in a, like, supernaturally weird way. It's just like, yeah, they're just kind of shit people, but that just kind of happens sometimes. Like, yeah, there are people who are dicks. I don't know. I don't know if that would translate to murdering kids, though.
But that's one of the things I thought was super weird and that I didn't really get. But again, we're not really getting a lot of information, and I think it's partly due to Jennifer not having thought about it, and partly due to Jennifer not caring about it, because she's like, this is not what we want to focus on here. You know, we want to focus on my Stockholm Syndrome love story.
Yeah, she's like, we need to focus on the worst man you have ever seen, but he's hot, so you don't need to think about that.
Oh my god. It's... So the worst man, actually, when you said he's being kept in prison, what Ren meant is that for 50 years, I think, he says.
Yeah, I think 50 years.
He is one of the Atlanteans who are like the original vampires, who's being kept in one of these temples, and they like take his blood and then drink it to create more of these vampires. That's the ascension thing. And what I didn't get here was, I mean, it depends on when these 50 years were, right? When he says he's 200 years old and he was like maybe kidnapped at 20, so this was still 130 years ago. Wouldn't some people still recognize him? Like, he has been their prized blood pig for literal decades, and then he breaks out, which is fuck, he has broken out, can we ever find him? Shit, we make up propaganda about the dark princeling, or what they call him, the Dark Lord.
Yeah, the dark one.
The dark one.
That's bad.
And then he just swaggers into their castle as a guard. Like,
yeah, especially like the Duke.
The Duke should have recognized him.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Like, yeah, they should. What the
Unless
fuck?
the Duke is very, very sure
He's face blind. He's not good at recognizing faces.
Unless the Duke is like very confident about the temple staff doing their thing, he should have at least once looked after Hawke when he was, or Castile, when he was imprisoned. So for the Duke to just not recognize him, they were in the same room together.
Especially because, like, Hawke said that, like, oh, they didn't just, like, take my blood, they also did everything, like, they used me for all kinds of entertainment. You're telling me, like, Mr. Sadist number 1 wasn't there, like, beating the shit out of him for fun? At any chance, like...
Or the other way around. I mean, Hawke at some point says, "Oh, I can like at the end of the book, I can only turn you into a vampire if like it's not just drinking my blood. Like, he has to play an active part in it, and it's like alluded that he would need to be some sort of intimate. So probably Hawk was already like they're killing young children and having an orgy with a guy during the Ascension. So you're telling me Mr. Masochist sex slave owner the Duke would not sit there and watch Hawk do it? How does he not recognize him when he sees him?
Hawk isn't even trying to like look like or be subtle or like hide his face or be like he's not even wearing like a fake mustache or glasses or anything. It's like, dude, make an effort.
Imagine him with like a 90s porn star stuff. He comes, he's like, "Hi, ladies." Yeah. But yeah, that's the thing I wondered, especially if like his brother is his current, like is currently at the city and like one of the biggest prisoners. It makes you wonder. I mean, of course, siblings can totally not look alike, but going after fantasy tropes, they probably do look alike. Yeah, they might even be twins. You know, that's just a fantasy thing. So it feels odd that they don't recognize him. You can just walk into the castle as well.
Strange. On the same...
Yeah, he probably just said he's from the capital. And, like, everyone believed him. And, he also had some people on the inside. Like, the commander was on his side as well. So, that's that. But the Duke must be dumb. And the Duchess as well. Because she must have seen him, too.
Yeah, they're all dumb as shit. It's impressive. Like, what a performance from them. Like, wow, that's what the fuck?
Because if they have been living as long as he has, then obviously they must have been there at some point when he was in prison. But that was one thing I was wondering.
If they were some of the original vampires, they must have also seen his parents. Like, I bet you he resembles his parents. Like, there's gonna be a scene where Poppy sees his parents, and I was like, oh damn, he has like his father's nose mix. And his mother's eyebrows or whatever, and you know.
But yeah, that was a thing I was wondering about, and I felt like, so a little side note. I read a lot of the pages when I was sick. So I even had to reread some stuff because I wasn't remembering it that well. So I genuinely thought I might have just skipped that part. But then I thought, no, the whole book would make sense if they remembered him. So yeah, there was another thing that there's a lot of stuff that takes you out of the immersion in this book. So it's really hard to even stay in the sort of trash mood.
If you're not sick and in like a confused haze, you start questioning a lot. You're like, what?
Yeah, because I love reading trashy books if they keep me engaged. But if I constantly have to think, hey, wait, did I miss something? Did I like skip a couple of sentences and now I don't know what happened? That's bad.
Also, like, I mean, obviously, it is clear that world building is not, like, important to the author or the story that much. But, like, the story tells us that there are real gods who really interact with the world, but also, do they influence anything? Like, apparently these are the same gods from the religion the people in this country believe in, but also they're not there. They're never, like, there's no there's nothing.
Yeah.
The only, like, intervention of the gods that people believe in is the Ascension, but we know that's not actually the gods. And, like, Hawk at one point says that, oh yeah, our gods are just asleep. And it's like, well, that's what I would say if I lived in a world and people told me, you know, we had gods, and I'd be like, oh, they're probably just asleep. That's why they're not, like, around, even though they should be. But we know that, like, you looked at the wiki and you were like, oh, yeah, Poppy is the daughter
mother,
of, like, of a real god, so they must be around, and they must fuck.
It doesn't make any sense, yeah.
Why don't they, and, like, if they, like, would they not consider, like, vampires or something, like, an affront to themselves? Would they not find it offensive that they're being used to, like, validate child murder on a giant scale? Like, would they not find that off-putting?
I guess it depends on the god in that aspect, but I do agree, certainly, because if you're saying, or if this is like common knowledge and not just something that Hawke knows, being an Atlantean, that the gods are like asleep or not active, why can you then, as the Duke, go up on your little pedestal and say the Craven attack was because you guys fucked up and some of you didn't want to give us your children? Do the gods just conveniently wake up, like send a little message to the Duke, and then they fall asleep again? I don't know if that... It depends. Do the people know? Do they not know?
No, I mean, at the beginning, you read it and you're like, oh,
the gods are watching.
Like, it's like inspired by like the Greek Roman pantheon. There's like a lot of gods with their own job. A lot of them have like two jobs that don't really go together. Like,
I feel like it's on purpose.
But it's weird because, like, at least the Greek and Roman gods have jobs that kind of connect and make sense with their lore, but there is no lore here. We have no idea what these people are doing. But, like,
nothing,
at first you just think so, especially, like, later, it's like, okay, the gods are just a justification. They're not actually real. But then it turns out, no, they are real, and they interact with the real world, at least to the degree that they fuck people and have children, which, if they're doing that, like, they don't even need to care about people, even though in, like, a pantheon like that, I would expect at least one of them being, like, compassionate and caring, but there is no way the king of the gods is not fucking offended as these little ants try to play God and like put dirt on his name and like invoke him in like offensive way. I'd be like, who would let this slide? If you're a god, why the fuck would you put up with this?
I genuinely didn't get the world building anyways, because, and this is something I saw on Reddit when I looked at, you know, reviews and like discussions on the topic itself, because apparently in the later books, due to things being kept so vague, she switches like lore 5 times.
Oh my god.
So because like she comes up with new stuff, or because you're thinking that this is probably the case, because otherwise the story wouldn't work in book 1 and book 2. She changes that in book 3.
Oh.
Because she wanted to go somewhere different, or she had a different idea, and because of that, looking back at the other books, they don't make sense anymore, because she, in hindsight, changes things. Yeah. So there's a reason why we're sitting here and guessing and not knowing and wondering, because either she didn't know herself, or she kept these, you know, back doors open for her on purpose in case she wanted to change something. But I feel genuinely she's not the best at world building. I did do a little bit of sleuthing on her. I have read a different series of her, the Wicked series, which is, it feels like, you know, I don't even know whether they came out first or after, but considering that Mortal Instruments is quite old, I would suggest that the Wicked series came out later. It feels a little bit like she read Mortal Instruments and she wanted something like that, just more spicy and more grown up. And there the world building is okay-ish. It's an urban fantasy. It's fine, you know, it's okay. Yeah. But a couple other of her series apparently are just blatant copies of other fantasy series that are already out there. Oof. To the point where there's the one with the Vampire College, right? Apparently,
Vampire Academy, you mean?
And there's another one. It's like, it has a lot of different... I think it's not Vampire Academy. I think it's a different one. But it's a similar one with the school and stuff. Or is it Vampire Academy? But the series...
I'm unfortunately not wise to the vampire series.
The series is not called Vampire Academy. It's something called different. But apparently she just... One of her series is apparently just that, with different names.
Ooh.
So, and because some people said, oh, you should definitely read that series of her. World building is a lot better. And then people kept replying like, yeah, because it's not her own world building. She stole the whole thing for somebody else. There's a reason why the books that aren't like kind of, as you said, Frankenstein together suck from her, because the other one, because she just can't come up with anything original by herself. So take that what you want, but she doesn't excel in this in any of her book series at all.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. The book
Totally
did not leave the impression of somebody who cared or had any understanding of how anything worked, quite frankly. Which reminds me of the fucking mention of electricity at the beginning of the book, which is then never mentioned again. The book states that the Duke has electrical lighting in his house, but that nowhere else can afford it because it's so expensive. Electrical lighting came into use in our world in the 18th century and late in the 18th century. So industrialization was already going on, which then supplied metals to construct, all the cables and shit. But also,
alloys,
the first electrical lighting was exclusively used outside and in lighthouses, because the first electrical lights were what we call arc lights, which are literally just sparks of electricity, which are insanely bright and that you would not want in your home. Private use of electrical lamps only happened in around the half of the 19th century, because then somebody had come up with the idea of using the electricity to light a filament, have it burn up very brightly in a vacuum enclosed glass, and those are the conventional lamps we know today. The idea that a pre-industrialized society would have electricity to light lamps anywhere at all is insane. It is so stupid.
It's crazy anyways, though, but okay.
I could be forgiving of something like that in a fantasy if you had magic, which would imply that certain industrial developments wouldn't be necessary, or which would just be beneficial to the development of electrical engineering and all, and the understanding of how electricity works, so that it would be used. But this world has basically no magic. It has vampire shit, and also werewolves, but that's that, really? And also another thing on the topic of this makes no sense. The society lives in settlements and cities surrounded by walls because you can't go outside because the Craven are there and they will kill you. Now, as a keen observer of the human experience, you might have noticed that to survive, people need to do something called eating. And in most societies, especially pre-industrial, you needed a lot of fields to grow crops to feed people.
But we don't have those crops anymore.
It's a little hard if you can't go outside a settlement. They even
say that. So a little addition, I just looked it up. It was the Vampire Academy series.
Okay.
Hers was called the Half-Blood. That was what I had in mind. Hers was the Half-Blood series. Theirs was a Vampire Academy. And she basically copied that thing word for word. She just gave them different names.
Stunning.
But yeah, I mean, Poppy even says so. The thing that we mentioned at the beginning, that Hawk kidnaps her in the end, they take her to, or they're supposed to take her to the capital because the city is unsafe because of the Atlanteans, and they're, you know, they have spies in the city and everything. So Hawk takes her, and they ride outside of the city walls, and they go on a little journey, and there they ride through like the barren land, you know, between the cities and stuff.
And Poppy even what's it called? The blood forest or whatever, which is red, and like there's bones all over everywhere. The ground, and everything's dead. And it's like, where's the food coming from for anything?
And Poppy even says like, oh, in the beginning, some of the farmers were like brave enough to live out here and farm. And I'm like, okay, where did they farm now?
Like, yeah. It's also, like, another thing which I've seen a few people do who seem to, I don't want to sound mean, but who seem to have a very limited understanding of the development that happened across history, is that Jennifer seems to be under the impression that you can have a lot of guards die all the time, and that there would be new guards to supply them, but the human population only grew exponentially at the onset of the Industrial Revolution, thanks to, in part, developments in chemistry and biology, which allowed for fertilization and more effectively, and also the development of inoculation and vaccines, which I would also like to point out this world doesn't seem to have, which raises the question, why the fuck would you number the kids by their birth and not by how many are still alive? Because child mortality before the late 1900s used to be at about 50% before the 18th birthday. It's pretty high. And if you need one child to carry on your family, you can't say that, oh, well, if the first one dies, you have to give the second one to the court and the third and fourth one to the temple. It does not logistically work at all.
I don't get the whole thing in general. I mean, there's a reason why back then it was detrimental when an illness or a plague kind of broke out in a city, because they didn't have that many people to sustain themselves. But the whole thing, because I mean, in Attack on Titan, they do have these walls as well, but outside of the wall, they always have these little bubbles of farmers, you know, where you farm in between. So there they at least thought about it. There's also, they said there are merchants, but not as many. So you can also not say the capital has these farms and they supply the castle with food. It. Because it's like a unique thing happening if a merchant ever even makes it or comes across a city outside of the capital. So you can't even take that. And all the children dying. But that's the thing. We also don't know. We have no idea on how developed this society really is, because, I mean, it's just so fucking weird. Like, they use, like very nondescript stuff to treat Poppy's back, but it's very potent. Like, she gets the streaks, the slaps, and her back is already healed because they put, like, the super nice, amazing medicine on her. But there's barely electricity anywhere.
It's like, there is clearly no industrial development, otherwise the air would be unbreathable and all the water would be dirty as shit.
Yeah.
Like, and also, there is no reference to technology or, like, also, like, where's the electrical light coming from if you don't have a generator? And also, generators are pretty loud, just, you know, because there's a lot of mechanical energy being exerted, but okay.
They just have a power windmill, you know, somewhere outside the city that just kind of like at the speed of sound.
The crazy part is also that, like, the book tells us that the Craven are a result of what the Ascended are doing, that if you suck a human dry but don't kill it, it becomes a Craven and it just kills and loves murder, and it can infect other people who then also become mindless beasts who love biting and murder.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, the book tries to tell you that the Ascended are playing 4D chess and using the Craven to keep the populace afraid and giving the temples their third and fourth born children, but also the Craven keep constantly killing a huge chunk of the population. If you are a group of vampires and you want to farm humans because you need to eat them, this is a very, very bad strategy. Your population should be in a constant decline. What are you doing?
I mean, you could explain the fact that they just have too many cravens, in my opinion. If they had a couple less, the danger would still be there. The fear would still be there. Maybe sprinkle in a little bit of, that's what the populace thinks. The Ascended are these warriors that are going to save them, but none of them has ever seen
never do.
One single Ascended
which is
person
strange,
fight
because
for them.
If you're keeping the Craven in order to power your propaganda machine, why are you not also out there killing them majestically and, like, styling yourself as protectors who obviously deserve to be in charge and deserve sacrifices given to the temples to support your obvious favor from the gods?
But, I mean, that's the thing that, at least through Poppy's eyes, we get told that that's what she at first thinks. And so the population must think that too, that the Ascendant, like, do... like fight and they're great warriors, though? And then but then you
Poppy
only later find
isolated.
Out that
Poppy only gets fed propaganda, but if you are a guard on any of the, like, rises,
you wouldn't believe it because you've never seen them.
You would know they're
you.
never there, and you're a guard. So you talk to other normal people. Everyone would know that these people are never there, that they are not helping, that they're sitting in their castles doing jack shit. Only Poppy believes this because she's never outside.
That's just, the whole propaganda thing doesn't work in the way it's set up.
Yeah,
and the thing is, it's so frustrating because you could have fixed it so easily. You could have just had, like, a dedicated Ascended honor guard, and these dudes is like, each month they draw sticks, and the one with the shortest has to be the honor guard for that month.
Also, just have less Craven. Like, have it be more a very occasional attack, but be like, but they're out there, so you can never be sure. We need to be careful all the time, you know? You don't need to have them be a genuine threat for the propaganda to work.
I feel like you could explain the too high or too large of an amount of Craven with the thing that Hawk says, where he's like, well, the vampires, they can't really control themselves once they have started to snack on somebody. But then again, I feel like if you control or lose control of yourself, the least thing you could do at the end is kill that person after you snacked too much.
Also, like, I assume this feeding is happening either in the castle or in a temple, so inside. So even if the one doing the snacking is lost in a blood rush, somebody standing outside would be like, okay, and now behead the corpse just to be sure it's not gonna come back as a Craven. Like, this doesn't feel like a hard job to do.
Maybe they're ashamed. Maybe they're like, ooh, I don't want anyone to know.
Ooh, I killed another baby. Sorry about that.
Oh my god. you should, like, listening to this podcast out of context will
Again, if you didn't read the book, none of this is, like, explaining anything. You're just bombarded with nonsense statements. It's just...
So, maybe let's talk about the big reveal at the end of the book. Because that, for me, was also, like, a little bit of a fever dream. Literally, because I was sick. And then again, figuratively.
You were like, did I hallucinate this? And then later you checked and you were like, oh, no, it's real.
So we have Hawk kidnapping Poppy. She still thinks she's not being kidnapped. She thinks they're on the way to the capital. And there's some new guards with her. One of them, you know, he seems very competent. He's also from the capital. And then they ride through the Blood Forest. They have some questionable sexual intimacy again. Weird.
Yeah. I mean...
where a couple of times she doesn't say no, but her body language pretty much screams, can we not do this? I'm uncomfortable.
But also he's like, no, I know you want it.
Yeah, that's why I said she doesn't verbally say no. Like, she says like, "Oh, the others are gonna see us. I'm uncomfortable. I don't know."
But also, I'm horny, so I will let it happen. But also, I don't really know what is happening because I didn't have sex yet, and I've never had sex before. So.
And then, they have that. They make it through the blood forest until they get like ambushed by what's the name of the rats in English?
Oh god.
Do you know it? There's like these monsters, giant hamster rats, things. Yeah. They attack them, then some cravens attack them as well. They lose quite an amount of people that were with them, some of the knights. And then they continue their journey, and they're subverting a town that's in the middle, because there's a high chance that town is evil or like not welcome to them, and that's why they ride past that town to a second town. They arrive there. It's all a bit weird. We don't see any of the Ascended. The people seem to know this new guard that's with them.
Yeah.
And then, Poppy is still like in a good mood.
Yeah, and when they arrive, like, a woman almost curtsies to Hawk. People show him a lot of respect, which is surprising. They give him knowing looks. Like
it's
Poppy
so
asks, obvious something is going on, but Poppy's so fucking stupid.
Poppy asks, "Have you been here before?" And like both Hawk and the other guy, his name is Kieran, they go, "Oh no. Once or twice maybe." But the people seem to know Hawk very well. So Poppy goes to bed, and then she starts to, have some thoughts about stuff and thinks a little bit. But again, she ponders. She doesn't go anywhere. And then one of the original guards from the city comes into her room, and he's like,
"That's after the sex, though. They have sex that night after they arrived.
Oh, I forgot.
And
the
then
second
in
sex.
the morning, Hawk leaves."
In the morning and the night, right? Like, sort of.
Yeah, very early. It's still dark.
Yeah.
And then...
Right, there's a second sex. Yeah.
And then later, one of the guards comes in and is like, "This shit is suspicious as fuck."
Honestly, Philip is the man. Philip is the
only man with a braid
on his
He
shoulders.
deserves so much better. And he's like, "These people are suspicious as fuck. There are no fucking Ascended. There's something deeply, deeply wrong here." And she's just like, "Well, Hawk wouldn't lie to me. I trust him. So this guy must actually be trying to harm me by trying to kidnap me from Hawk." So she's like, "Okay, I'll go along." She goes along with him.
And then they go out of the door, and like you can notice this Philip is fucking stressed. Like he's like, "Shit, I've got the maid with me. I need to save her." We haven't talked about the
empath powers yet.
Oh, we can get to that in a minute.
He's stressed as fuck.
He's stressed as fuck. He walks out of the door, right? He has her right behind her. And they're like walking along the hallway. And then this, totally not suspicious guard, Kieran, he appears on the other side of the hallway. He's like, "Where are you guys going?" And Philip turns around. He's like, "Oh, I was just taking the maiden somewhere." And the maiden, Poppy's like, "Oh, just going somewhere." And then
Poppy tries to make meaningful eye contact with Kieran, being like, "This guy's suspicious, don't trust him."
Yeah, and
then Kieran transforms into a wolf man and is like, "Ha, you're not leaving."
And then tries to 0 to 100, there's suddenly this big fight going on.
Yeah.
I think Philip dies, right?
I think Philip only dies in the barn. Like, they go to get the horses, like, they run away to where
Philip doesn't make it in the end.
To get the horses. And there's another guard. One other guard is already missing, presumed dead. And then when they're in the barn, the other, people arrive.
And the fight and chase that ensues, Philip dies. Poppy is like, "Oh my god, there's wolf people here. Like, this is crazy." And she looks at Hawk, and even during the fight, it's very obvious that he's not fighting against the wolf people.
Yeah, it's obvious he's chill. It's obvious he knows these people. And she's just like, "Hawk, be careful behind you." And he's like, "No, it's fine."
And only at the end of the fight, when she turns around and everyone who was from her city and not from the capital, or who's from this new city that they're at, is dead. And she like sees Hawk standing there, and to be honest, he must have been thinking, this bitch is so fucking dumb. Like, when is she gonna?
He's like, damn, she really made my job easy. Maybe I don't have the riz. Maybe she's just dumb.
Maybe it's just Maybelline, So like,
maybe it's just brain damage.
And then she realized, oh my god, Hawk, no! And then I think she gets
Hawk works for the Dark One.
And I don't remember.
And then she has like a sexy hand-to-hand combat scene with Hawk right there in front of everyone, which is deeply embarrassing to witness.
And it's like it's being made worse by the commentary. Of the
others
guards.
Are like, oh no, should we stop them? And the other guy's like, no, this is the most fun I've had in forever, or whatever they say.
Yeah, if it had just been Poppy attacking Hawk, and then it's like she grinds her hips and like makes him stay on the ground and stuff. Okay, the commentary, oh no, let's just watch them. That made it 100 times worse. Like, I fucking hated that scene.
Yeah, that scene was so...
And then he takes her. Does he immediately take her to the prison?
Yeah, she gets put in the dungeon.
She gets put into the dungeon, and I think Hawk visits her again at the dungeon and kind of, talks to her, and she still doesn't get it. Like, she still doesn't get it. He tells her this whole thing, or not the complete whole thing, but the Atlantean thing.
Like, every reader already knows, but the conversation also makes it obvious that he is the prince, like, that he's the Dark One, whatever. She doesn't get it. She's stupid.
Dumb. And that's the part that I had to reread. When I was sick, I didn't get it. When I reread it a day after, when I was feeling a lot better,
oh my god.
I was like, wow, I got the Poppy experience.
The part about this is, like, in the scuffle of trying to escape, she got seriously injured, and, like, the cut is, like, over her, like, ribcage or whatever, and he's putting healing salve on it, and she gets turned on by it.
No, doesn't that happen when she... No, that's a different one,
She gets turned on all the time, that's the problem.
Because
she's like, oh, he doesn't seem to notice that I think this is sexy, but he's on his knees before me and stuff. And like,
yeah, no, I don't remember whether the cream was making her horny or the situation itself. Because a couple of scenes later, he leaves her there, other people come down, and they're like, okay, girly, we're taking you up to eat dinner or whatever, like, go up the stairs. And then they get ambushed by...
more people who are like, we're gonna kill her because she's sucks.
Because they're and like, right. There's like a mutiny going on, a riot, and then they fight against each other again, and Poppy gets stabbed, gravely injured, like really, really badly, and the people who are still loyal to Hawk decide to carry her up to him, and then he uses his own blood to heal her because he's Atlantean, and the blood is like has healing magic stuff. And then she gets horny from that. That's like an aphrodisiac.
Yeah, that's a genuine, and yes.
And she's like, oh my god, kiss me, make out with me, fuck me. And he's like, no, I don't want to.
Yeah, she's like, I don't even know if she's already like touching herself actively.
She is.
It was
the
so
description is pretty clear that she's
okay.
she's lying in the corner, she's already masturbating.
Like, no, you need to fuck me. But he doesn't leave. He's like, oh no, I can't. Not while you're like this. You can't make reference. He doesn't leave though. And he's not like, I'm gonna remove myself from the situation because I respect your consent now, out of all times.
Yeah.
No. He stays there.
But the way it's done, it's so icky. Because he's not just staying there. He's like, I'm not gonna be like involved with you right now because you're gonna regret it. I want you to know the next time I cringe every time he says this because he says this so many times. The next time I'm inside of you, and it's like, and he wants her to know it's him.
She accidentally stabs him, like she's mad at him, and she takes her dagger and then she stabs him.
She gets down
again, it's like they act like she's violent, but she immediately regrets it. She's like, oh no, I didn't actually mean to do that. Oh no, and she thinks he's dying, and I'm like, God, I wish he were, but I know he's not, because that's not the kind of book this is.
She gets down from the horny, and only then does she realize that his guard, Kieran, called him Castiel. So the name of the Dark One. And that's when she realizes. And there's like a little part of introspection where she's like, I was so dumb. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah, and I'm like, this doesn't, like, lampshading this doesn't make it better, Jennifer. It's still bad. You should have just not written it this way.
Yeah, you were dumb. And then she stabs him. Yeah, and then she runs away.
And then she immediately feels bad about it. And then...
And she runs away because she feels bad about it. And while running, she goes through all of these complex emotions that could have been reduced to one page. But I think it's like 3 or 4 pages of her just running away.
Time. I think I was skimming by that time. I was like, God, can you be done with this?
And then he catches up with her. He, like, bites her because I don't know why he bites her. Did he see it as a last resort?
He drinks her blood, whatever.
He drinks her blood. He realizes, oh my God, she's half Atlantean, or she has some sort of Atlantean blood in her. She gets horny again magically because of the bite. And this time it's okay that she got made artificially horny, because then they fuck in the snow. You know, it's her second time. Isn't it great to have your second time, you know, in the snow? Must be amazing.
Certainly.
And then he takes her back to the castle. And they eat dinner. She walks into the room. And there's, like, all these people who attacked her, like, strung up on the wall. One of them is still alive, though. And she's like, oh, he's still alive. And Hawk is like, yes. Or Castile is like, yes. I want him to know that I'm the one who will be ending his life. And it's like, well, he would already know if you killed him
he's like,
previously.
oh yeah, it's like, it's done when I say we're done, you know? It's like...
And at least then she's uncomfortable.
Yeah,
like,
and
she
then,
doesn't just
like,
sit down
dinner,
and she's like,
he's like, why don't you have an appetite? And it's like, dude, she's a sheltered little girl. You just showed her eviscerated corpses that also probably smell real bad. Let's be real.
Oh my God,
and you want her to have dinner immediately after and be like, oh yeah, I love food. Like, really? Are you dumb? Like...
And then the book ends with Castile saying, we're not going to the capital. We're going to my hometown. I'm gonna make an honest woman out of you. I'm gonna marry you.
It is so crazy.
This book is... and the thing... I feel like one thing, because now that we've talked about Kieran a little bit, that's how I thought, or like how I came to From Blood and Ash, as we should read this because it's like just complicated and problematic to some extent, is that there's also some racism in the book, where in the first book you're like, the ideas are there but it doesn't feel as bad as other fantasy books. But apparently by the consecutive books in the series, the racism just gets worse, and it's already like,
it's already bad because the black girl is called Tawny. So,
it's already bad.
You know.
So Poppy's lady-in-waiting maiden, a subservient,
bestie, whatever.
A subservient role though. Like she is a servant. Is the first person of color we're getting introduced to,
and until kind of almost the only one.
Yeah, until to the very end of the book. I mean, we've been talking for nearly 2 hours now. We've only just gotten to the second POC character, who is Kieran. She's the only POC character. She's in a servant role. Her name is Tawny, which is a shade of brown.
That's great, yeah.
And that's everything she is. Tawny has the least amount of character any of these characters who are somewhat related to Poppy.
She's a hype man for Poppy, and she takes this job seriously. He's there to tell Poppy how hot Hawk is and how she should just fuck him now. She's really, really there to just be like, oh, Poppy, you're so great and so cool and so beautiful. Of course Hawk loves you. Of course you should make out. I'm all for this. Insane shit.
And then the second...
I'm wondering if, like, Kieran and Tawny are going to get together in a subsequent book.
I don't think so. At least not from what I've seen.
That's crazy. Maybe Tawny's going to marry, like, Cass's brother or whatever. That's...
So Kieran being the second POC character, maybe this is a language thing because Kieran isn't really a German name or a name that is popular in German. And even with German names, I don't know what they mean. Like there's meaning behind these names, but I don't know. But
I feel like Kieran might be Irish or Scottish. It feels it feels Celtic. Yeah, it feels like Gaelic in origin. Yeah.
And it means little dark one. And now I've seen
not good.
I've seen one person on Reddit going, okay, listen, I called my cat Kieran because it's a black cat and I think it's cute, but and you shouldn't call.
It's also fine if you call like a white kid Kieran, because then it's not like weird. But if your two characters of color are respectively called Tawny, and so brown girl and dark guy, it's not ideal. And also Kieran again is like in the subservient role.
Yes, the thing is he is also magically bound to Castile, his white master.
He's also he's a fucking dog. Hello? And he's like more aggressive and violent than Hawk. It's like, damn, we've gotten the racism bingo. Thank you for playing.
And at first I was like, okay, maybe. For the first 10 seconds that she read Little Dark One, Jennifer was like, oh, that'd be so cute. You know, we have the Dark One who's Castile, and then his little friend. He's the Little Dark One.
And he's black guy, you know.
After those first 10 seconds, she should have looked at her character sheet and go, oh, damn. But I didn't. But I made a POC, like I can't call him the Little Dark One. And that's already bad enough, right? The only POC characters are in subservient roles.
Oh god, it's gonna get worse.
They are at the mercy of their white supervisors, masters. Kieran is, again, magically bound to Castile. There's no way to even disobey him. But in the following books, we find out that these wolf people... this is their thing. Nearly all of them are POC. So the wolf people are not white in general. And it's their thing to be bound to the Atlanteans. That's their thing. That's the thing they do. So it's not like it's just Kieran. All they do is being bound.
I also would like to point out that the white people who are, you know... in the master position are literally descended from gods, which is not a good look if you have the animalistic brown people who serve them.
And later in the book, right, they decide to break free from the Atlanteans because they don't treat them well. And they just go to a different master then. So they serve under that person. Who is, if I remember correctly, Poppy's mom. So...
No, stop it. Get some help, Jennifer.
And it's like, I'm laughing, but it's not a laughing matter. It's serious.
It is so bad. Like, it's just, oh no.
It's just, you know, I thought, I saw one TikTok of a woman being like, you know, in the beginning, it can be sort of secret to see the ways which Jennifer Armentrout is problematic in the FBAA series. It took her 3 books as well. And I was like, how did it take you 3 books? Like, I can excuse 1 book, but at the second book, from what I've read so far, on the wiki and stuff, at least in the second book, you should have noticed some things are wrong.
I feel like you should have been, at the moment you saw Tawny introduced, you'd be like, this is bad. Like, people lay into Sarah J. Maas for Nehemia for valid reasons. Like, that's a very valid criticism, and it's correct. But, like, at least Nehemia's name wasn't, like, black girl in a different... you know what I mean? Like,
I know.
And she was a princess in a position of... Like, that's way more than Tawny's getting out of this.
Yeah, Nehemia was of like, a higher position.
She was, like, the magical, wise black girl that gets sacrificed for the white protagonist's character development, which is bad, and you shouldn't do it. But the fact that she was, like... a capable, kind, beautiful black princess was already like, well, a part of this is at least, like, not horrible. Like, the getting sacrificed and sacrificing herself on purpose for the character development of the white girl is very bad, but the rest of the character is not horrible. Tawny is a package that's just like, maybe just don't do that.
I was so fucking sad that we even have to celebrate the fact that Nehemia was a princess.
Yeah, and that, like,
I mean, but it's especially if you're, like, if English is if you're native English speaker, you should realize that Tawny is a shade of brown.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe somebody who is neither involved in the arts, so has had to look at different shades of brown
like
in
English second language speakers, like, is like, I don't expect people to know specific shades of any color and like be able to like work that out. Like, I don't look up translations of character names if I didn't know, and if this word wasn't used so often in YA books to describe like animal fur and stuff, I probably wouldn't be so familiar with it either. But
but it you know, we are, and the English speaking population is as well, obviously.
They should know.
So it that was just something I wanted to get it out. I wanted to get it into this episode because it's from what I've seen, it does not get better. And there's one scene that some people at least have felt a bit squeamish about. It's, I think, in the 3rd or 4th book. I can't remember.
There's 4 of this? Oh god.
I think there's either 3 or 4 of the original series, and then she wrote 2 prequels.
What are those about?
About, I think, some god and like the fight of the Atlanteans when the vampire thing happened. I've heard the name of that guy before, Nyctos or something.
Yeah,
because
the
it was
king
like
of the gods. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like about him and his consort, something. I like that. But what was I about to say? Oh yeah, there's something happens. So when the Atlanteans marry, they do something called the joining. It's like, I think they described it as like drinking blood from each other, but you also have sex.
You also fuck, of course.
But because Kieran is connected to Castile, Poppy has to do the joining with Castile and with Kieran. And in the books, it's previously apparently described that they have like a very friendly friendship, like sort of brother-sister kind of relationship where she feels very safe around Kieran. She loves him in a sense of, it's not necessarily romantic love. And for the joining to kind of sort of make sense and not be super awkward, suddenly his relationship with her switches from like totally platonic to weirdly sexual, and then in the end they do have a threesome at the riverbanks. I think it was, the wiki said, and some people felt like it was a sort of fetishization.
Yeah.
Thank you. Fetishization on the whole master-slave sex kind of thing, because he might be doing this voluntarily, but he's mostly doing it for his love to Castile, because the switch to his relationship with Poppy felt so weird in those books. So it was also something connected to the racist stereotypes of slaves and stuff that gave people, or at least some people, very icky feelings when reading that.
Yeah.
So yeah. There's another little tidbit for you that I found out when I scoured the internet.
That's great. I feel so much better about these books now. That's great. Oof.
There was one thing you wanted to talk about, and I said, "Oh, let's talk about that later." Her power, what's it called in English? Is it called a blessing?
Empath.
In the German one, it's always said it's her Gabe.
A gift is called
her gift. What they say, yeah. She's an empath. Insert the Shane Dawson.
Dawson clip, yeah, but really though. She, at first, it's like, oh, I can feel people's pain, like emotional and physical, and I can also help them alleviate it if I think positive thoughts at them. Which, like, that's fine, I guess.
I thought it was a cute thing to have.
Yeah, it's not really employed very much or well.
That's the thing, though.
It's, quite frankly... It's a little weird that she doesn't use it more on Hawk. Like, if you have this power, why would you feel bad about using it? Like, just feeling that somebody's in pain is like, okay, that sucks to feel. So, yeah. But if you're like, oh no, I need to know what he's thinking about, that you then don't reach out to feel it. Because then with time, she starts, like, being able to feel more than just pain and just general emotions. Because she's an empath. But also, like, in the situation that feels super suspicious, she barely uses it. She uses it on, like, Philip, the MVP of guards, a little, and she's like, oh, he's nervous. That means he must want to abduct me. And it's like, girl, if I thought I was surrounded by people who already killed one of my colleagues,
I'd be nervous.
Probably be nervous too, especially if I was protecting the one person whose life the whole kingdom rests on from my perspective.
She's
no
she's
pressure
so
there. And,
yeah.
But she doesn't try to feel what Kieran's feeling. She doesn't try to feel what, like, other people are feeling. She just uses it at the most random moments.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes her empath power kind of also just starts acting up because it does change so she can feel more emotions. But to me, what bothered me most about it is that it's not utilized in a meaningful way at all. What you said, it doesn't. It gets introduced in like the second or third page in the book, like very early. And I thought this is gonna be the thing that's like setting her.
It's not her thing at all.
And yeah, it kind of just is there as well. And I don't know whether she's.
Any information she gets from this is unnecessary. We already learn of these things through other means. So maybe the power helps nothing. It does barely anything. Yeah. Except, I guess, Hawk is like, oh wow, you're so empathetic, and you tried to heal my pain while I was being nice to you. Oh no. You're just not what I expected. And it's like, what did you expect?
There's
a huge
one
cunt?
thing...
Like, what did you think was going to happen here?
I would say there's one thing we find out through her powers, and that is that Hawk is sad all the time. And while that might not be like such a big thing, in the end reveal of why he was sad because his brother got abducted is like a little bit of like, if I was a Dark One, I'd also be sad a lot of time. Yeah. So that's the only meaningful thing we find out from her. It's not much. It's one thing. I feel like
that could have like also happened through a conversation where he let something slip accidentally.
That is true.
Like, especially, I'd feel better about it if she didn't find out about it through her empath powers, but through him slipping up because he's, feeling comfortable with her and likes her and trusts her, which makes him look less like a sociopath, which you would want in your love interest, maybe. I don't know. But, yeah, no, it's just so useless. There's another thing that's like, there are so many parts where I feel like if I were an editor, I would have easily been like, here, change this around because this part adds nothing and can be left out. And it could actually be more interesting and suspenseful if we did. Like, for example, when the festivities get attacked by the dissenters, and Victor is killed, why the fuck do we then afterwards have a bunch of time where Poppy is depressed and doesn't talk to anyone and then gets out of her depression through Hawk bantering with her, yay, and then have her be told that Hawk and some more guards are taking you to safety to the capital, instead of during the attack Victor gets killed. She can still kill Mazine or whatever. And then Hawk's like, I have orders to get you to safety immediately before anyone can know what is happening. And with Kieran and maybe some other royal guards, immediately take her out, and they'd be like, okay, yeah, I trust, like, he's her personal guard, I'm sure he knows what's up, and like, and then they immediately leave, because like there's like 20-30 pages between that's just like, what is this for? What's the point?
I think it was to show her suffering.
Yeah,
probably.
And to have her have the conversation with the Duchess and being like, oh, maybe she got abused too, which was like, okay, she's still murdering children, and she's also precipitating your abuse, so I don't know.
I also thought
why this matters. Like, the fact that she's kind of sad maybe is, like, irrelevant. This adds nothing. Yeah. We didn't need this scene.
I had no personal relation to the Duchess, but it made me like her less after we found out, because I was like, so you willingly let the Duke abuse your prized horse?
Especially, the weird part is that the society is at least nominally not that sexist. Like, because they have a queen, the temples are staffed by priestesses who are the ones in control. Why is the Duchess less powerful than the Duke? Why isn't her opinion just as important? Why doesn't she stop? How does he abuse her at all if they're both ascended and, like, more powerful and stronger than humans anyway? She can just shank him right back. Like,
I don't get it either, but it didn't make me like her at all.
No, I was just like, because the way she was about it, she was just like, well, yeah, you get abused all the time, but who gives a shit? It's over now. Like, chill about it. You don't need to worry about it anymore. And it's like, well, I feel like that's not helping.
And the moment Poppy comes to her to talk about the change in her gift, I thought, oh, maybe now the gift is gonna get important again. I was like, oh, maybe something's gonna happen. Yeah, nothing happens. The Duchess has her tested on her. As always, Poppy can't get any emotions from the Duchess nor the Duke. So she's like, all right, still works, I guess. And Duchess says, okay, that's fine. I guess it just is evolving. And I don't know.
Poppy acts like this is, like, helpful information for her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, girl, she just said to you,
she gave you nothing.
I don't know what's going on. It seems to just be changing. Whatever, I don't know. Just don't talk about it with people. I'd be like, well, that's not a suspicious thing to say at all. Like, from someone with maybe no idea what the fuck is happening.
And the thing that I've been wondering as well, again, I've been wondering a lot with this book, is whether did Jennifer Armentrout plan on this being a series, in terms of she actually thought she was gonna get this through, and she, like, on purpose was not telling us more about the gift, because the gift must be important to some extent, because the Atlanteans do have some, like, at least Hawke says he has the gift of, you know, being able to persuade people, but he says it's an Atlantean thing. He says it's not a gift. It's something that Atlanteans can do. So is what Poppy is having, is that an Atlantean thing? Is that a Poppy thing? Is that a my dad's a god thing? Or was Armentrout just gonna go, you know, if this book never makes it past book 1?
I mean, she has published series before, so I assume publishers extended her grace and were like, yeah, this sounds like something we can sell. You can have, like, a series, yeah. If the first one sells well enough, sure, yeah, of course. Like,
maybe
you have a pre-existing audience. Clearly, your writing, like, works for people. They like to pay money for it. Yeah, we're making a whole series.
But a lot of the unrevealed mysteries and stuff in this book confused me to the point where I was like,
it is fucking crazy that this book makes the ACOTAR series look like well-plotted, tightly written works of fiction, which is insane, because they're not.
I mean, I have to say, considering tightly written, at least for the first two books in ACOTAR, I never felt like they had stuff in there that I thought was unnecessary. With the third books, the third book was clearly not edited well. Like, Silver Flames.
She also submitted it too late, and they were like, "Okay, we will have to rush it to print because, like, we can't."
No copy edits for you, which is gonna go
people will buy it anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You feel it. Like, you read it and you're like, oh, this is way worse than the other two. What happened here?
Let me look up if we can find any information on Jennifer having an editor, because sometimes that stuff is out in the open.
It's just such a bafflingly bad book with so many wasted opportunities. 'Cause, like, we haven't talked about it, but, like, Victor, right? He's, like, kind of a father figure. He taught her to fight. He clearly cares about her. But also, he stands by and let her abuse happen. Even though, as the, like, head of the Royal Guard, there's no way he doesn't have connections that could send letters, like, that aren't being checked.
Yeah,
like, to
definitely.
the Queen and inform people of this kind of abuse that's happening. He doesn't do anything. And that's interesting. It's like, if you played it, like, genuinely, and you were like, yeah, he cares, but also maybe he does think she kind of deserves it for acting out, and he thinks that maybe if she gets punished, like, she'll stop and, like, won't endanger herself anymore. But the moment we have any kind of confrontation between her feeling like shit about her entire life, he gets killed. Like, like, the moment he finds out how much, like, she hates her life, he immediately dies. Like, there's
but I'm
nothing
also
there.
thinking, like, how much lack of introspection did Victor have to not realize that this teenager he's been caring for
That's true.
forever.
She's not good at lying, so it's pretty
suffering that
obvious what
much.
she thinks. Yeah, it's like...
Yeah.
But, like, again, like, this could be interesting if he wasn't just a badly written plot device. Like, he's just there so she can be sad when he dies, you know? That's...
In a Facebook post from 2018, she writes, "So I haven't talked about this and my editor doesn't know it." And then she proceeds to talk about her medical history. So at least in 2018, she had an editor. Internet sleuth coming in again.
they should have been paid less, because they clearly didn't do a good job. Or, if they did a good job, then I don't want to know what this looked like before.
When did the first one come out? Come on, give me the nitty gritty. Shouldn't it say on Goodreads when it came out?
Yeah, it should. It usually does.
From blood and ash. Come on, give it to me.
Come on.
Came out in 2020. It's just 3 years old? She pumped out 6 of these books?
Holy shit.
It says first published 29th March 2020.
Jesus Christ.
She wrote this during the pandemic. She was like, I'm gonna make your life living hell.
I mean, at least the second one she did. This, if it came out in, like, March, then...
Well, yeah.
It was written in 2019, yeah.
Yeah, there's 5 books, and number 6 is already... it's already listed, but the primal of blood and bone. Oh, joy. And there's, like, comments from people under it being like, oh my god, I love this book already. I think there's supposed to be, either it's already out, or there's one of them that's from Blood and Ash, from Hawke's perspective. But I don't know which... Is it this one? So she saw, you know, our girlie from the... Not Hunger Games. I don't know. I'm so good at book podcasting. Christine Myers, the woman, the author from
Stephanie Meyer wrote Twilight. Suzanne Collins wrote Hunger Games. I don't know what you're working towards, so I can't help you.
I was just thinking, Jennifer, since we know she's been known to plagiarize a little bit, she saw that Stephanie Meyer had written that book about Edward's perspective. Yeah. So she was like, damn, people surely want to know what Hawke was thinking during the first book.
Well, I mean, whatever he was thinking wasn't good, and I think the less we know about it, the better.
That book will just be like 100 pages of dig.
I feel like a lot of it will just be horny thoughts at inappropriate times. And we don't need that. I don't need to know what Hawke's thinking. He's already unsympathetic. There's no way this makes me like him more. It'll just make me like him less.
Maybe we can use the last couple of minutes to talk about the style of writing itself.
Bad. Next question. Yeah, no, it's not. It's not good.
So we touched on this conundrum of having at most a little bit vague historical setting and a weird modern way of speech, vocabulary in there. Poppy at one point talks about Hawke being a waste of oxygen and slay.
Dude,
a well-educated queen.
People in their banter, Hawke and Poppy say shocker all the time. This word is used so much. Yeah. Wow, shocker. It's why is this modern slang in there? Stop it.
I think it was the worst for me, but again, since I read a translation, some things were different, but it was one word they didn't change. So imagine reading a text in German completely, and then Poppy just says, fuck. And it was way.
No, there's
does this, is she gonna say slay in the next couple of pages?
God, I wish, honestly. But yeah, no, it is also so strange because the book deals with quite a few heavy topics and wants to be taken seriously, at least at points. But the framing and the writing tone just don't work for it. Everything feels lighthearted and unserious. Yeah. Especially later, she found out this man manipulated her, killed people she loved, is at least tangentially responsible for the death of the man she considered like her father. But she can't really be mad because she's too horny, and she's like, oh, but I love him. And it's really? Really? Listen, I get it. Your pussy doesn't get a lot of attention, but you shouldn't use it to think, even if there's just soup in your brain. I'm sorry, but that's not how you should approach life.
That's her only alternative, it's either soup or vagina. She's not an octopus. She doesn't have a brain for each of her limbs, appendages, so she has to think of other organs.
It's just also the banter between Poppy and Hawke. Whenever it happens, it's a weird time, and it goes on forever. Yes. They don't just exchange a few quick lines, they exchange 2 pages of quick lines back and forth, and it's I get it, they have banter, can we move on? It's not interesting.
And I feel like this is sort of her style of writing, because she did this the same in the Wicked series, but there it usually makes sense. Either the couple is on their way somewhere and they're bantering while they're talking, and then after they're done, it's they arrive at the door, they go in, or they're on a motorcycle, or they're doing something while they're bantering. Hawke and Poppy still T-pose inside her room and talk, and they usually also always do it with somebody else present. I don't know, maybe
so bad.
maybe that's another kink of Hawke. He has to. He's an
exhibitionist. He's I need people to see.
He has all these conversations, and there's one, it's not too much in the beginning, but it's still in the first third, I'd say, where Poppy is having a discussion with Hawke inside her room while Tawny is just standing right next to her, and they just walk in. Tawny doesn't know that he is her potential new personal guard,
Yeah.
She like they just found out, oh my god, he's here, he's like having interactions with me, and Poppy just goes off with this man like she's known him for her whole life, and Tawny should go, girly, are you still a virgin? But Tawny just says, oh yeah, no, I'm enjoying this. Like,
it's so such a weird. And it's also, they also have this long scene of pointless banter when they're on the fucking wall after they fought
my god,
the Craven, and they're just standing there for 10 minutes giving snappy one-liners one after the other, and it's like, girly, maybe do this somewhere else? What is this?
But they're not just standing there, though. Hawk, again, fondles her, and she's uncomfortable because, again, she doesn't know what to do with her emotions. Her body is reacting in natural but still unknown ways to her.
Yeah.
They are in a life or death situation.
He really is the king of sexual harassment. It's amazing. Like, wow.
It's like he would never just stand in front of you and talk to you. He would at least like touch your butt while having
or have like one of his hands on her tits or anything. Really, he's like, I need.
And every second sentence he would. This is also the way Hawk was talking was making me more like furious than the way Poppy was talking. Because he was so full of himself. Every single fucking sentence, Hawk is like, I'm the Rizzler. I'm rizzling them up left and right. Yeah, I know I'm gonna fuck you someday.
Yeah, and he literally says stuff like, oh yeah, I am hot or whatever. And it's like, dude,
constantly.
If you have to say it, it's not great.
Oh my god, and the way the puppy says, oh my god, he doesn't really smile or laugh, he's so cool, and then we find out he just doesn't do that, so you don't see his fangs. It's like, that's oh my god. It's like, imagine, like, everybody thinks he's such a cool guy, and he's just like, I can't move my mouth, or else he becomes what is the Bauchredner? It's like the
ventriloquist.
Thank you. You're so versed in your vocabulary. So he becomes that, and people just get scared because he doesn't move his mouth while he's talking.
Yeah, it's like he makes Kieran move his mouth, but it's him talking. So they have this two people at home.
But Kieran does it very, obviously, so he's just constantly talking. But yeah, it's just... Everything about Hawk screamed to me, this is a man I would not leave my cup with if I go to the restroom at a party.
Yeah, no, he's like so many red flags all the time. And Poppy's like, oh, red's the color of love, right? And that's
the
how
color
it goes.
Of blood. But, I mean, truly a testament that Poppy doesn't really know much physical attraction or just, I mean, as you said, he's her first everything, so there's no question that she falls for Hawk if that's the only thing she's ever seen in terms of attraction towards her.
Yeah.
Gosh, that guy's so horrible.
I understand that, in a very romance-heavy, if that's your genre, then, of course, the relationship and love will have, the narrative will give it priority, even if, in realistic situation, it wouldn't.
It wouldn't, yeah.
But that only works if, the romance is good, if you want to see these people together, or if you like at least one of them, or if whatever's going on is compelling. Okay, maybe if both people are, insane people, that even if it's unhealthy, it can still be interesting to watch. But this was not that.
It felt uncomfortable.
Yeah. I would have so appreciated if Poppy were a genuine angry person who's also trying to manipulate her way out of maidenhood, and she was also trying to use Hawk, and it was at least somewhat mutual, that they're trying to manipulate each other into something. I would like that more.
Yeah,
her constantly being oh no, I'm blushing so much, and oh, he's so hot, oh, I feel so strange. It's yeah, okay, cool, whatever.
It's, yeah. And also, there were so many moments where she was so fucking clueless. And on the one hand, you could say, yes, she's sheltered, but on the other hand, it's like...
It makes
But
sense.
she's only sheltered if you want her to be for the scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, this book gave us a lot of grief. And I don't have a lot of... So you are a certified hater, but I genuinely don't have a lot of books that after reading I say, well, thanks, I guess. I think thinking about books that I read not for school, you know, the books I read
that
on
you
my
chose
own.
to read, yeah.
I think there was like, with From Blood and Ash, there's only one other book that I put down that I finished. I have DNF'd a couple of books because I was just not having it, that I finished because I held on to the thought of maybe it gets better. It just didn't get better. So congrats to From Blood and Ash for getting into that very exclusive club. Yeah. I don't know how is it with you? I mean, I know you're a lot more easily disappointed by books, but
it's the problem about it is not just that it's bad, surface level, and uninteresting and predictable at every level. The worst offense is that it's so long about it. I have read other things that were bad and disappointing from a quality perspective, but were much shorter, which made them a lot more bearable and entertaining. Yeah. I have also read things that were, from a craft perspective, worse, but so unpredictable and hilarious that it was a truly enjoyable experience. But this is so nothing. Yeah. Everything about it, like, sure, there are, like, seeds of good ideas in there, and if you just put in a little effort, you could fix this up pretty okay. But the fact that it's so easy makes it offensively bad for what it is, because it implies that everyone who worked on this didn't give enough of a shit to make it better. And that's just not good. I feel unhappy after reading this. Made worse by the fact that I read a bunch of good books right before I read it.
That's a thing, I think, as well. I didn't read I read books where I was like, well, it's gonna be a little trashy read, you know, or like not super high quality. But you really went in. You read the good stuff.
Yeah, I read like good young adult books, and then I also read a short story collection from Margaret Atwood, who is a very, very like competent writer, and I didn't like all of them, but they were all well written and at least interesting. But like, and reading this after was like, oh my god, this is so bad. Like, that's why it took so long. Usually I don't take super long to read books for this, because I'm like, okay, I have a deadline, like once I start, like I'll read through it. But for this I took like 2 weeks or whatever, because I started and then I was like, this is so boring. Every time I thought about reading it, I was like, you know what? Right. Why would I do this to myself right now?
I had one time where I got into like a trashy reading mood, but then again, like I previously said, I was taken out of the immersion because things didn't add up in my head.
It wasn't fun enough.
I wasn't able to go, oh, this is just a thing, and just, chuck it like I did with Lightlark.
It's like the book tries to pretend it has an introspective protagonist, but Poppy is so bad at thinking, it's upsetting.
Like, it's also a problem that she does the thinking and then she says all of it.
It's and she thinks the same stuff over and over. Like,
she does.
Lightlark is bad, but at least it is not like this. I would read Lightlark again before I read this again, or even before I read a sequel to this, quite frankly.
And that's a tough verdict. Like,
that's because Lightlark I also found too long to be super entertaining. It's also kind of boring at parts, but at least it commits to being batshit insane in terms of the final like romantic scene, which no one saw coming because it's stupid as shit. And
I loved it.
Yes. At least Alex Astor was like, I know what I like, and it felt like a lot. I guess also Alex Astor's writing feels a lot more like she wrote what she's really into. It's a clusterfuck of tropes that don't work together, but you can feel that she is into it. She thinks these people are hot and cool, and that's great for her. This feels... It feels like no one cared. Like, this doesn't read like Jennifer was really into the vampire lore and making it sexy. Like, the blood drinking scenes don't read like it was written by somebody who's really into vampires and who's enjoying writing this. They read like somebody's like, what do people who like vampires like?
And then I guess pinch they this. Suck and then they do some stuff. Yeah, it feels... Lightlark feels like this one fan fiction from a 13-year-old who's like super into the franchise she's in, and she's writing this fanfic for now 3 years. She's 16, she's grown up, she wants to spice things up, she goes back, she changes some things. She writes an author's note saying she's sorry she got like, I don't know, hit by a bus for 2 weeks and she wasn't able to do anything. That's how Lightlark felt. It wasn't good, but it was passionate to a point. And From Blood and Ash feels like this one fanfic writer who tries to capitalize on as many ships as possible on AO3 just to whip something up.
It also is a lot more forgivable because Alex Astor didn't write, like, I think she wrote some kids' books before or something. But she hadn't written anything like that before, so... That was her first step into writing stuff like this. Jennifer has been writing stuff before it and should know better, is my verdict.
Jennifer Armentrout has a long publishing history. Alex Astor, I think the two books they're not children's books. I think they're middle grade.
But like middle grade is like...
I've even seen one of the books...
to 14,
Yeah, I've even seen one of the books at the bookstore. And it looked cute. Yeah. It looked cute.
Yeah, no, I hope they're good. It's good when things are good. I don't know if I expected, but I assume they're kind of mediocre for the age group. And that's good enough. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Blood and Ash is just like... It feels so much like a product.
Yeah.
Like... It's like, I don't know, maybe Jennifer really thinks, like, Hawk is hot and sexy, but, like, a lot of it feels just like, hey, I read this somewhere else, this is in right now, so I'm also gonna do this.
I feel like if you wanted to go all the way and maybe give it some dark romance tones, then she could have gone more into the, Poppy as a helpless little maiden route. And then it would have been more coherent. And if you then market it the right way, you will find an audience for it.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. Like, if you like reading that stuff, I feel like you'd be so disappointed by this because you're like, the seeds are there, but it didn't commit to it, which I think is the worst
neither person is getting what they want.
Yeah, this book tries to be everything at once and commits to nothing, and that's really what makes it so boring and bad.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a stoking review from us on this book.
If I could give it 0 stars, I would.
What was my review on Goodreads? It gave me nothing but brain damage, is how I feel.
Yeah, I was like, honestly...
Ka-ching. I also expected, because the rating is very high from Blood and Ash. If you look at it, it's like 4 point something, which is to be expected from like a popular book talk book. But the most, since it's usually sorted by newest reviews, or like the reviews that in the latest couple of weeks have been voted the highest, the majority of them are bad. Like, in terms of it's rated badly, because I guess people jump onto this now after the series is out, so all the good and raving reviews from people who read it the first time and jumped onto it, they're kind of buried.
Yeah, it's also that, obviously the first people to read it are people who like Jennifer's work, so of course they're gonna be fans. But yeah, I also feel like that it's just genuinely so not good that
Yeah.
the high rating is like, I feel like the high rating obviously also comes from a lot of people who are like, oh, I've heard about Jennifer L. Armentrout. I know this won't be good, so I'm not bothering. Which is also fair. Like, any book that's like, oh, it's popular in Book Talk, I'm immediately like, oh no, this means I
Let's
shouldn't
avoid
read
that
it.
like the plague.
Like, unless I've heard about it before it was popular in Book Talk and I know that it's probably good, I'm like, oh, I can't, ooh, no.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree.
Every big Book Talk book I've heard about was just bad. Like, just not good.
Well, yeah. I mean, most of them have been enjoyable to some extent, but never like... At least if you're in the romantasy Book Talk bubble, then they've never really blown me away.
I mean, you were gonna read Nightbane, so I am excited to hear about that when you're done.
I hope I can get like one more book in between Nightbane comes out. Or maybe, who am I kidding? I hope I get one in.
I was about to say, you need to read Lost Boy. Doesn't Nightbane come out like late November or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we have a meeting scheduled before that for Lost Boy, so you do need to get another book in.
Yeah, but Lost Boy, I already know it. I know the...
Okay. Oh, true, you read it very recently, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I read it like a month
I read
ago
it years ago. That's why I was like, oh, I need to read it before
No,
then. But
I read like...
you don't need to reread it, that's true.
I think I read like 1 or 2 months ago.
Okay, then
I read
you
Lost
don't
Boy.
need to, yeah.
And I already know it. It's comparatively short. I mean, it's dense. It's incredibly dense and well written.
It's really good.
But we're not gonna have problems with Lost Boy. We're not.
Yeah.
All right. Before we're, completely getting off topic here, we already gave our rating. It could be negative if there was the chance to give this book a negative rating.
If you enjoy reading books because they're bad, I think you should pick something shorter. It's not worth it. Like, it's 650 pages or whatever. It is not worth it. There's enough bad books that are shorter. Please read those instead. Do yourself a favor. It's not worth it.
Honestly, if you want to read something that is the same amount of batshit crazy, read Lightlark. It's shorter.
That's true.
You still have spice in it. And at least from a trashy point, Lightlark read easier.
Yeah, and you don't see the twists coming because some of them are just so out of left field that you will be surprised. Not positively, but you will be surprised.
They're not twists, they're jump scares. That's what they are.
Honestly, true.
That being